Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Jermaine Williams, president of Montgomery College, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to our new discussion series that we are calling Next Gen Talent, Let's Get to Work. And I'm so happy to have here with us today Mr. Martin Rosendale as our guest. He is a life science advisor and now with the BioHub Maryland Pathways of Maryland. He has an important role in thinking about workforce needs of our states and Montgomery County's burgeoning biotech industry. Thanks for joining me today, Marty.
Dr. Williams, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward.
Awesome. So today we are at Montgomery College. It's one of our biotech labs at our Germantown campus. And this is our mock biomanufacturing facility space, complete with all this equipment that an employee of a biomanufacturing company would likely encounter. And we are standing, just in case you're wondering, in front of an actual bioreactor machine, which I'm told can be used to grow animal cells in culture, and these cells can produce vaccines and biopharmaceuticals. In this lab and others, our faculty provide instruction and they engage students to develop the skills required to become biotech professionals. This seems, and I do believe it is, a perfect place for our conversation about the growing biotech talent pipeline that we need to meet in order to create and foster the workforce for our residents to engage in and for our employers to engage in as well. So let's dive in. Montgomery County is home to a vast number of biotech companies and continues to rapidly increase, and you are very familiar with this. These employers have an abundance of jobs, but many are going unfilled, right? They are in need of a workforce-ready talent pipeline. So here at the college, we're doing our best to do our part, by graduating individuals who fulfill those needs in biotech. Many people think about vaccines as part of the industry, but the industry covers an immense number of other types of work. So let's kind of level set here, Marty. Take a moment with a basic understanding of what the biotech industry does.
Sure. So first of all, I want to commend Montgomery College. The work that you do here, this lab is a great example. The training that you do, the skills that you provide your students is tremendous and is tremendous benefit to the field. So first I want to start by commending you and Montgomery College. So biotechnology, first of all, I'm going to state the obvious, right? Biotechnology is a combination of the words biology and technology. And so the industry really is just that. So it's leveraging technology in the application of biology, leveraging biology to produce therapeutics, diagnostics. It may have an industrial application, a medical application, maybe an agricultural application. But it's essentially the combination of biology and technology. Here in Maryland, particularly Montgomery County, we have strong cell and gene therapy companies. We have strong vaccine development companies. We have medical device companies. And it's really interesting having watched it grow up in this area. If you think back, 16 years ago, in April of 2006, it was announced that the human genome was fully sequenced. That work was done right here. And because of that work, a group of talented individuals came out of that development. Then they began forming companies. They began spinning out and forming new endeavors, new companies. They became entrepreneurs. Well, those companies now are maturing. And so up until now, the workforce need in the biotechnology space has been for laboratory personnel. It's been for development personnel. But now that those companies are maturing, the biomanufacturing industry is growing very dramatically and very rapidly here. In fact, it's growing faster here than anywhere else in the country. And so as a result, the skill sets and such that are needed to support the biotech industry are changing as the biomanufacturing industry continues to grow. So it's been a really interesting evolution. And just, the next step, now we're seeing, new people coming out of the universities and they're combining newer technologies, artificial intelligence, deep machine learning, with biology to develop even new, more exciting technologies and products that we need to be thinking about. What is that workforce going to look like going forward?
Well, that is immensely helpful, and thank you for teaching me something new. I really appreciate that, and we're gonna probe that last little bit of your response in terms of the jobs in a minute. And I know, so now that we know a lot more about the variety of activity in the biotech industry, we're gonna shift, and I appreciate that segue to jobs. At MC, we see ourselves as part of the county's homegrown talent pipeline. You and I have had this conversation. You know what we endeavor to do and continue to do. We work closely with employers to understand their needs so we can build curricula with their feedback in mind, so that they can go directly into labs, understanding SOPs, standard operating procedures, so that they have good laboratory practices in mind. We engage employers so that we can prepare that workforce-ready talent pipeline. We want our students to receive an education that they need, so they can step into these great jobs, some of which you kind of alluded to, and we'll get there in a little bit. And we know that this helps to strengthen the local economy, right? And advance where we're going as an area. As other industries are changing in this era, biotech is emerging. You talk about the maturity, like in your words, the maturity of the industry. So there are new kinds of jobs, some of which you shared, jobs that didn't exist 10 years ago, jobs I'm sure that didn't exist 5 years ago, and jobs that we don't even know are going to exist, or maybe we think they're kind of going to exist, but we don't really know what they're going to look like. So new jobs requires new skills. And going back to kind of the beginning, as we try and engage with and continue to engage with employers, would you just spend a few more minutes talking about what biotech jobs are out there, number one? What are the careers within that residents can access with the appropriate education? And then what are those skills? And we'll probe the skills a little bit more, but those three questions would be great to get your thoughts on.
Sure. So first of all, I want to make a statement about the industry itself, because I think it's important to understand something that's fundamental. Entrepreneurs in this space are competing in what is a breathtakingly expensive and monumentally regulated industry. And the reason that's important is because you really have to be strongly mission-driven and passionate about what you're doing. These companies are saving lives, improving lives, and in order to survive that development process and get to market, you really have to be extremely mission-driven. So these are very mission-driven companies. They're led by very passionate individuals and leadership. And to be a part of that, you need to feel some of that too. So that's something that's important to people coming into the industry. But as the industry is evolving, in my opinion, we're seeing the need for more non-traditional students, if you will. And I'll use myself as an example. So I started out as an engineer, which is a trade that my father taught me. But I was passionate about biology. So I was an engineer before I was a microbiologist. And that combination has served me really well in the biotech space. And I've been in this space for close to 40 years now. But as we see the industry evolving, we need engineers that understand biology, and we need biologists that understand engineering. And so when I talk about non-traditional learning, that's what I'm getting at. We need people that understand the basics, the science and the theory, but then also understand what you might consider to be outside of the space. So again, biologists that understand engineering, engineers that understand biology, and so on. So that's important. But as the industry evolves, we're moving from, particularly here in Montgomery County, needing PhD, advanced scientists that are doing development work in the laboratory, to needing more and more manufacturing personnel. And in that environment, it is a typical manufacturing environment. You're taking raw materials and you're producing an end product. But it's also atypical in that it's done in a clean room environment. It's done with specialized equipment. And so there's a lot of specialty that gets built into it as well that's important. And so those skill sets are important to develop. Montgomery College has done a tremendous job in providing the talent and the workforce that's been needed to this point. Now we have to evolve to that next level, right? The manufacturing and those positions and that workforce as we move forward.
Thank you for that, and that's really, speaking to that skills component and that paradigm shift in post-secondary education of, coming to just receive a degree or a certificate, a credential of some sort that's focused on a topic, right? It's really this interdisciplinary, skills-based, project-based component that's really going to kind of fuel this situation, and I appreciate that. And it kind of gets to the partnerships, and that we talked about. And I mentioned, the college connects with employers from the biotech industry, employers like AstraZeneca and Novavax, to understand their talent needs. And, based on recent conversations with several cell and gene therapy companies, for example, we're proposing a new cell and gene therapy certificate, right? That will become a pipeline for talent capable of this work. This is exciting for us. We would be the first institution in Maryland to do it, and we're well on our way. And so collaborations, like this are critical. And I think we're both sharing that sentiment in this conversation. Educational institutions need employers. We need their feedback to signal to us, which jobs, the knowledge, the skills, the credentials are important, so we can meet their workforce needs. With that said, and we have very strong relationships. The bigger question: how do we strengthen those relationships? How do we strengthen those partnerships to ensure that students are ready to compete for the moments of today and those moments in the future? And do we need different partnerships? Just like we're thinking differently about education and really skills-based, do we need to think differently about partnerships?
So the easy answer is I think yes, we need to think differently about those partnerships. And what I'm about to say is easier said than done, and I'll explain what I mean by that in just a second. But so those partnerships are critical. If you think about this as a supply and demand equation, right? On the industry side, that's the demand side of this equation. We need workforce, we need talent, we need people that can come in and do these jobs for us. In the universities and colleges, that's the supply side of this equation. And so there's a gap in between here. Now, the universities and the colleges and industry have done a good job reaching out to each other. But interestingly, I had the honor of being the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council for the last 4 years. And in that role, we pulled together a group, a coalition of industry and academia to come together and talk about this workforce need. And one of the conclusions that they came to is that that gap between the supply and demand side of this equation still exists, despite the outreach from both sides. And so I've given a lot of thought to that, and this is the part that's easier said than done, right? And that is somehow the groups need to come together and get more ingrained, more joined. Instead of academia being responsive to industry, academia should be a part of industry. So as these developments occur, as this change is happening, the colleges are a part of that change. So rather than being responsive, you become a part of it. And in doing so, you can anticipate the future. You can see what's needed today. You can look at what's going to be needed later on. In my role as the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council, I was in constant communication with industry. We are an industry association. And so every day I was hearing, this is what we need, this is what we're going to need, this is what it looks like today, this is what it's going to look like 5 years from now. And somehow the colleges and the supply side of this equation need to get even closer to the demand side so that as these changes occur, you're a part of the change, not just responding to the change.
Thank you for that. And that really does, again, another kind of paradigm shift into how we have our relationships. And regardless of how strong they are, and they are very strong, we need to rethink when we engage, how we engage in a different places and spaces earlier on in the continuum. And
I think there are some fundamental ways to do that.
Yeah.
So because of my background and experience, I coach and advise CEOs in the industry. Mm-hmm. But there are opportunities for academics to do the same. There are scientific questions. There are questions that academic professionals can coach CEOs and the leadership teams of these companies, and in doing so, become a part of the industry. And I think looking for those opportunities will be the way to get closer, to bring the supply and demand side of this equation much closer.
That would be great. So then when the demand is needed, we have it ready. Right. We're not saying, okay, this is what we need, and now here's 6, 9, 10, 12, 24 months to spin up a curricula, get people interested, get them through, and all these components.
Right.
So,
because you were a part of creating that demand.
Right, which is, we'll have a conversation, and continue and get connected and see how we make that work. And thank you for that. When we talk about, and so we'll probe this a little bit more, because we are talking about some serious paradigm shifts when we talk the relationship between business, industry, post-secondary education, colleges, universities. We talk about skills-based. So just to probe that, breaking down kind of paradigms with skills-based hiring. We talked about being an engineer, right, before you're in biotech, right, and you talk about engineers who need to learn. And so I assume there could be different disciplines as well, right? And so when we think about that in this time of great challenge and unfulfilled job openings, combined with great opportunity in the biotech industry that you have just clearly articulated throughout our conversation, it's clear that the future demands greater innovation and setting aside outdated paradigms, right? So some more families can succeed, right? And that's when we talk about it. And it's interesting when you mentioned being mission driven. Individuals in biotech are very mission driven. And I think that maybe that's, our great alignment with, post-secondary education, because we are very mission driven. We want to leverage education to impact lives. And when we think about impacting lives and creating a talent pipeline, because we know that'll lead to, a family sustaining wage and economic upward mobility and social upward mobility and intergenerational wealth. We've sought to be nimble at MC, and we offer an AA degree in biotechnology. Students can also take short-term trainings, like our biotech boot camps. I know you're familiar. I'm going to share, that trained numerous residents who lost their jobs during the pandemic. Our BioTrack program trains local scientists, most of whom have PhDs, with new skills and access to CRISPR technology. Amarex, a local company, we worked hand in hand, with them to design our local clinical trials project management program. So efforts like these, right? And, they put the students' needs and the talent demands first, yet you've opened up our eyes where we can even deeper those partnerships and those relationships. And so when we think about, just kind of segueing from where you went with a deeper partnership, going to the actual credential, how can industry and post-secondary education, collaborate for new ways for residents to get those credentials? And we've talked about us being, more in the forefront of creating that. And I'm wondering what ideas we still have to get our residents engaged in the idea of biotech. Kind of back to the very first question of, so Marty, what's biotech? Like, we can be on, there asking the CEOs those questions so that downstream we're ready to go. But then we still have a cadre of individuals who are either coming out of high school, upskilling, reskilling, career changers. How have you put thought, how do we get them interested in just the magnitude of opportunities in biotech?
So I've given a lot of thought to this question, and this is another area or a key area where academia and industry need to come together. Again, it's the supply side of this equation, right? We have to reach out. We have to get to more people. We have 360,000 veterans in the state of Maryland, for instance. Veterans, at least what industry tells me, veterans are fantastic in this industry because this is a highly regulated industry, and veterans are used to rules and regulations, and so they don't have to learn that part. And so how do we get to those individuals? How do we get to communities that don't understand what biotechnology and biomanufacturing is? I was talking with one of our leaders in Maryland who has a biomanufacturing facility in Baltimore, for instance. And he said he sees high school students walking to school every single day, walking past his plant. And he knows that they don't know anything about what's happening in that facility. And so how do we get to them? How do we help them understand? And also we have to understand that this isn't for everybody, right? Not everybody's going to be into biology. Not everybody's going to be that mission driven or that passionate about this space. So how do we get to enough people so that they understand what's possible? And I'll relate this back more personally. So my grandchildren, for instance, I have a 14-year-old and a 9-year-old grandchildren, and it's my mission to expose them to everything that I can expose them to, because when they have to make their life decisions, I want them to know what's possible. So how do we take that and take it out to everybody that currently may not be aware of these positions, may not be aware of these jobs, may not be aware that maybe today they're working in logistics, and with just a little bit of training, learning how to handle a bioreactor, learning how to handle the cells that go into a bioreactor, they can move into a logistics position in a biomanufacturing facility and double their salary because they've moved into a new industry. So it's a matter of working at industry, working with academia, getting to that workforce and helping them understand what the possibilities are and the skills that they're going to need, and then providing that training, right? So we have a need, because of the growth in biomanufacturing, for those logistics people to manage the warehousing, people to manage the raw materials that go into the manufacturing process, and people to manage the finished goods as they come out. Well, that process in itself is not that different than logistics and other warehouses, but it involves biology. And so how do we give them that additional skill, that additional set of training, so that they understand if they've got cells that are stored in liquid nitrogen, for instance? How do they handle that? How do they get it from the warehouse to the manufacturing facility? So it's a new skill set, but it's not that different from what they're already doing. And we just need to put those programs together, first determine what they are, and then put that curriculum and those programs together so that people can make those transitions.
And thank you for that, because connections are key. And being able for, to have students, residents, see themselves in the place and space, and almost, I heard you kind of like mapping. Mm-hmm. Like we have, some populations that may just be, really great. You said, following rules, mm-hmm. right? If that's, it's kind of a very, you could ask questions like Marty Germain, or do you like to follow rules? Is that something, because you see yourself in a job where you need to follow rules and attention to detail, and then you open their eyes to biotech, right? And so these, really engaging opportunities. I think we have a few more minutes. If you have a couple minutes, we have some questions from the audience.
Sure.
And just like to share. So our first question, just a few, what segments of biotech do you expect to grow in the near future here in Montgomery County, and what jobs would be part of that segment? You talked a little about this when you talked about the maturity of the actual industry, but if there's anything you'd like to add? So
right now in Montgomery County, we're strongest in cell and gene therapy and immunotherapy. And by immunotherapy, I'm referring to vaccine development, but both prophylactic vaccines, like the vaccines that we get for influenza, for COVID, okay. but also therapeutic vaccines for cancer and other diseases. So those are the areas where we're very strong. And as I mentioned, those industries now are moving into the commercial phase. So there's still the need for development. If you're interested in the science and you want to go on and get advanced degrees and you want to work in the lab and you want to be a part of that development, that's great. We still need that. Okay. But as the industry is evolving, now we need the manufacturing help. We need the warehousing and the logistics and the engineering that go into that manufacturing process. And so it's a new industry for Maryland. And as I mentioned earlier, we are growing faster here in that biomanufacturing space than anywhere else in the country right now. And so those jobs, we've got thousands of openings, and will continue to grow as we go forward.
Thank you. What are, and we talked about some of these supply, what are the challenges that you foresee outside of anything that you shared? I mean, thousands of jobs.
So what keeps me awake at night? Honestly, what keeps me awake at night is the supply side of this equation. Yeah. Getting to the people that are watching and listening to us right now. Yes. Getting to them, helping them understand what the opportunities are. making sure that we get to a diverse population. This is critical. Diversity and inclusivity for decades has been a moral imperative. Today it's a moral imperative and an economic imperative. And by economic imperative, I mean in a couple of ways. One, we need the workforce. We need the people that want to do these jobs, that are mission driven, that are excited about this. But we also need that diversity, because as we're competing in a global economy, we need a global perspective. So we need diversity in our leadership teams. We need diversity to drive that diverse perspective so that our companies can be more successful. So that's what I mean when I say it's moved from being a moral imperative, as it's always been, to now it's a moral imperative and an economic imperative. And we've got to reach those populations. And here in Maryland, we've got the populations. We just need to get to them and help them understand what the possibilities are.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know you're at Montgomery College, where we are. We are a Hispanic-serving institution. We're also an Asian American, Native American, and Pacific Islander serving institution. We represent the diversity of Montgomery County, and all of our community colleges as well represent the vast diversity of the state, as well as our state institutions and other institutions. So we want to endeavor in this conversation and really provide that talented workforce that's so very much needed. Last question: what is what's your advice, Marty, to someone who wants to change careers and become a biotech professional?
So I coach a lot of young people that are coming out of college that reach out to me and want to know what advice do I have. And really it's about soul searching. It's about, are you really that mission driven? Is this something, do you want to get into a space where you're going to be developing therapeutics and diagnostics that are going to save lives, improve lives? And is that something that you can really be committed to? Because it takes that passion and that drive to be successful in this industry. If you've got that, the rest is just learning. The rest is, what are the skills that I need? Right now, the Maryland Tech Council has the BioHub Pathways website. You can go to that website today, and from there you can search. Using keywords, you can find what are the different jobs that are available. What are the skills that are required for those jobs? What's the educational level that you need for those jobs? What's the pay scale for those jobs? Because these are extremely well-paying jobs. You can get all that information from the BioHub Pathways website. So if you've got that passion, if you've got that mission-oriented drive, and you want to be a part of this amazing industry, then it's a matter of finding, where can you go? Montgomery College to learn the skills that you need to move forward.
That's great. As we close and we say goodbye and thank you to our audience in a few moments, you've shared so much insight, so many nuggets. Just a great opportunity for us to act on so many of your thoughts. Are there any other priorities, any other thoughts that you'd like to share before we close out, Marty? Yeah,
just quickly. In the past, so many people that have moved into this space started out in college thinking they were going to be a doctor. Well, this is you don't have to be a doctor to be in this space, and I think that's a really important message to hear. You can come into this biotechnology space. You can start again as a logistics person, as an engineer. You can get a degree in biology and not want to go on to get an advanced degree and do very well in this space. And so, when you think about biotech, you don't have to think about being a PhD. Take a look now, see what the skill sets are, see how you can move up the ladder. You can get a certain set of skills today, and maybe start. I keep using logistics as an example, but it's an easy one. So start in logistics, but then come back to Montgomery College and get another certificate, get some more knowledge, some more training, then move from logistics into manufacturing, and then move from manufacturing into management and leadership. And so there's a lot of opportunity, and it doesn't require those advanced degrees to get there.
Immensely robust industry with multiple access points and kind of career paths once you get in, having the dedication to to society, to saving lives, and having that passion is key and critical, as I've heard you say several times over. But this is, it's been an absolute great conversation. Marty, thank you again for taking time to talk with me about these important issues.
Sure, my pleasure. And thank you so much for what you're doing here at Montgomery College. It's tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and thank you to our audience, absolutely, for participating today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please join us again very soon for our next gen talent series when we discuss critical issues facing the local workforce. Thank you and take care.
How do you define Montgomery College? That's the wrong question. It's not how it's defined, it's who defines it.
This is a turning point. It's a moment to look to the future and reify your purpose.
MC is defined by those who put in the work, from early mornings to late nights, from the classroom to the workplace, with their family, their teammates, and when no one is watching. When our students declare to the world, "I am MC," they stand tall, backed by 1,000 experiences that have shaped them along the way, and alongside those who have walked the path with them.
There may have been moments of doubt when you were afraid by too much responsibility. Some of you have changed majors and found new inspiration. Through it, you have found the courage to surmount obstacles. If you are the first in your family to graduate, please stand up and say, "I am MC." If you earned a high school diploma and a college degree this spring, if you speak more than one language, if you are older than 50 years old, a military service member, an honor student, if you are a parent or a member of the Montgomery College graduating class, please stand up and say, "I am MC."
Those who embody our spirit don't just graduate and move on. Rather, they continue to represent us as the designers of change and the leaders that they've been the entire time. We don't just begin to be inspired by them after graduation. It's that in our eyes, they've been inspiring us every step of the way.
I belong at MC because I am a champion for inclusion. Working in DSS, Disability Support Services, we provide reasonable accommodations for students with disabilities. This is to ensure equal access to education.